Aloha friends, I'm Ash.
And I'm Matt, and we are the Yoga Couple,
Welcome back to our channel.
a page dedicated to cultivating freedom in body, mind, and soul. So now we're going to talk about the other side of it, which is the spiritual effects of pornography. So as I was saying before we closed out the last section on the biological side of things, as far as the spiritual side, it is, going to really be seen as how it's going to affect our character. This is the side that really brings us the unhappiness in our life, because the biological is one thing. It's going to rule us and kind of control us, which can be used as a motivator to want to work on this and fix it. But the spiritual is really where all of the emotions are going to come from, where the relationship issues are going to come from, where all these kind of more deep-seated heart issues are going to come from. And this is also the only place that it's going to heal from. This is, in my opinion, the only true way to heal addiction is through a spiritual pathway. And even the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, he created the anonymous groups because he had tried all traditional methods to help with addiction. And it was Carl Jung, I believe, who told him, your only hope is to throw yourself into a spiritual practice and surrender wholly to it. Okay. That's why, like, the first step of all anonymous groups is to surrender it to a higher power. And lo and behold, he healed. So in the psychological world and in the medical world, there are so many conditions that are not healable by traditional medicine. Okay, so for example, like alcoholism, you cannot just give an alcoholic a pill and fix alcoholism. Okay, you can't. Addiction, pretty much overall, there's no cure in the conventional way. Okay, and as far as the things like post-traumatic stress and other chronic diseases, it's not a conventional fix. Okay, it's not a biological fix. So this part is really the true healing. Okay, so now we're going to get into, what does the addiction really represent? What does it really why do we even do it? Okay, because we talked about the biology, but there's more to that. Okay, that's just what's happening in our human system, in the body system. But the body is it's the last expression. Okay, I always think of it as like soul, mind, body. Okay, body's the last one you see. So when the body's doing all that neurochemical stuff, it began way up in the soul a long time ago. Okay, so this was a spiritual issue long before it was a bodily issue. Okay, so let's get into it. So if we begin to address it, like we said in the last video, we admit it, we start to work on it, and we see that this addiction is taking power over our lives, and it's bringing us suffering. We then can begin the true process of digging into the root. Why do I do it? Okay, besides the biological urge, really asking yourself, what is it about the experience though? What is it about the experience that I am so craving? Okay, and ultimately, let's say the slam dunk right away. Ultimately, one way or another, we're always going to get to the root of, I want to feel unconditionally loved. Okay, we're trying to get back to the bliss of unconditional love and surrender. So something about the experience, just like any drug, there's a massive surrender that happens. There is a letting go of all self-judgment and kind of diving into the bliss of surrender. That's what we're really after. Okay, in all drugs, in all drug experiences or addictions or highs, let's call them highs. Okay, even like infatuation and love can be a total misunderstood high. What you're really after is the bliss of unconditional love. Okay. And something about this experience triggers that. And what it is, obviously the huge biology going on. There's all this huge rush of the chemicals, but there's an interesting surrender into the experience. Because it's so overwhelming, it's easy to lose yourself in it. Okay. And it is that losing yourself that's so addicting. Okay. It's giving yourself to the addiction is ironically why it's so addicting. So lose yourself to find yourself, right? Like Jesus taught. That's because that is the ultimate feeling of love. And pornography in our modern time has just become the easiest way to get that. And you can start asking yourself, what is it about the experience for you personally that gives you that? Okay. So like, I'll just talk about some of mine over the years that I've thought of. One of them off the top of my head might be like, it gives me the feeling or the impression or illusion that I'm wanted. Like my mind will convince me that all these women want me, or whoever I'm looking at like wants me. Okay. So it gives me the high of being wanted and loved. Okay. That's one side of it. Another one might be sometimes I feel unconditionally loved because I can surrender to my like sexual desires and cravings and not feel judged, because like the woman doesn't obviously see me, right? Like if it's on a device or a computer or whatever. So there's maybe a feeling of non-judgment. There's a surrender to that feeling. Okay. Maybe I'm actually really just want non-judgment. That's why I'm using this as a vehicle to get that. Let's see. It could be on that same vein, kind of just like wanting to feel wanted, to feel loved, to feel accepted, to not feel judged. And I'm trying to think if there's any other big ones that I'm missing. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But that is the real root, okay? The root is I just want to feel loved. I just want to feel accepted. And something about this surrender causes that. So after the experience, though, what do we find? We usually find that everything else starts to settle in, okay? There's guilt, there's shame, there's all these energies of like, I failed kind of a feeling, okay? It can often happen. And I think that ultimately, those are good emotions in that they can be used to push you out of the addiction. If you don't feel anything about it, then obviously you're never going to get over it because you don't even feel anything yet. Okay. You haven't hit bottom, in other words. And in my experience, I had to hit bottom, a few times to push me to want to make the changes, because you kind of got to see how far you will go down the rabbit hole before you'll finally be like, dude, this is ridiculous. Okay, this is starting to get ridiculous. And unfortunately, like we mentioned in the last video, unfortunately, that can ruin careers. That can ruin public reputation. That loss of moral compass for the sake of the urge can make us do really weird things, which is hitting bottom. Okay, hitting bottom like molesting children because you can't control your addiction. Politicians sleeping with like interns that they should not be sleeping with, like just not being able to control themselves. Because that's ultimately what's happening is you lose the ability to control yourself. There's no discipline. There's no ability to control the impulse. The desire for the addiction becomes so overwhelming that lack of control sets in, and then we see the effects on society. Okay. One other thing that's very interesting, I read one time when I was reading a book about this, really interesting description of spiritually what's happening, which is a little intense, but it was like kind of a wake-up call. And in this book, I don't remember the name, but he was saying how it's what happens, it's as if your brain unzips, okay? The crown chakra opens, and demons, okay, beings want to get inside. They come in through your crown chakra, they come down, eat up all your kundalini energy, and go straight down to your sacral and root chakras. And they want to vicariously fiend off of your bodily experience. And, you know, whether or not you want to think about this as like literal or true, that's up to you. But I think nevertheless, the imagery is extremely like powerful, okay? Because I think anyone who has an addiction can fully attest that, okay, it is as if something takes over your vessel and is almost using you, okay? So this concept of like demons coming into your body and vicariously using your body to fiend for their, you know, trapped addiction, can be really useful because it can kind of really show you that you are being controlled, you are being owned by this addiction. And that can be helpful for the warrior type people, okay? So Ashley actually always tries to point this one out for me, because she's always like, doesn't it drive you crazy that like you're being controlled by this though? Doesn't it drive you crazy that you don't have true freedom because the addiction runs you? So she's like a fighter, right? So she likes that, and that's an easy thing for her to see it as. That doesn't really work for me because I don't know, it's not my nature. I'm like a non-confrontational type of person. So I think for me, I try to understand it. Hence, I do this, right? I want to understand it, and then that's how I uproot it. By understanding it, I can usually move through it. But there's always going to be an ounce of like, yeah, like I need to take control of my life, because when we are not free, we suffer. And that is why pornography or any addiction brings suffering into our life. We have to understand that what it is doing is it is stealing our spiritual freedom. It's stealing my free agency. It's stealing my ability to take control of my life, because I will waste endless hours of my life, okay? It's like I wouldn't even want to know how much time some angel, my guardian angel, has been keeping track. And he's like, my son, what are you doing? Because it's such a waste of life, okay? And that can be helpful to push us to want to do something about it, because we realize that we are literally, you know, letting something take our precious time and just, it's gone, okay? And that's not why we came here. So there is something to acknowledge about that we have to reclaim our power. We have to reclaim our ability to govern our life in the direction we want it to go. And what do we all want? Happiness. We all want to be happy. We want less suffering, more happiness. We want fulfillment. We want spiritual satisfaction. And that cannot come if we are addicted. That cannot ever come about or be fulfilled if we are trapped in an addiction. So the suffering that happens is all tied to loss of freedom. In all of our human experience, whenever we are not feeling free, we feel suffering. Whenever we do not feel like we have power, we feel suffering, okay? It's whenever we feel that helplessness, that's that suffering that sets in, all having to do with freedom. So we often blame macrocosms, okay, like big things in society, when in reality it's all in here. We just need to focus on freeing our internal state. It's never about the circumstances, okay? In all honesty, it's not even porn's fault. It's mine. It's ours, right? It's our issue of not taking control and honoring our soul's power to have this free agency and to honor that, okay? And not letting something else use us, okay? Again, whether we thought we want to take that literally or not, you have to admit that it is ultimately controlling you. If you can't admit that, that's the first step. Okay, we have to acknowledge that we're not free. If you look at pornography, you're not free. Like, I know that about myself. Okay, I have to say that. And I've tried in my best these 2 videos now, well, 3 from that last one we talked about, and I'll always talk about it because it's got to be talked about. You know, you got to say it. You got to admit it, because if you don't admit it, we're never going to heal. This is the first step, and it's the hardest. But what I can testify to you and what I can share with you is, like I did in the last video, every time I say it publicly, every time I work on it, every time I acknowledge it, it gets weaker. And so by working on it, you are demonstrating your strength. You are demonstrating how powerful you are, because you cannot be embarrassed. You cannot be controlled. And this is why, you know what, honestly, I just had this epiphany just come to me. If men truly want to be men and they want to be badass and strong and powerful and all the things that most men crave as masculinity, get over your addictions. That's my challenge, is master yourself. Stop being controlled by pornography. Stop ruining your poor sacred women with these addictions. Okay? One of the most painful things is how it affects our relationships and how this ruins my perception of women and relationships with family, and it can eat us away, okay, if we don't control it. So I would say that it's almost like we need to change the dynamic, and here's something for women that can especially help is, women, you need to think that men who overcome their porn addiction are awesome. Okay? That needs to be attractive. And obviously I think you all agree, but what I'm getting at is, like, stop allowing us to do it. Okay? Don't think that it's normal. Don't let a guy just be like, yeah, dude, like, we all do it, babe, chill out. Like, it's just porn, babe, whatevs. Like, no, not whatevs. This is serious. And I think that this is what's wrong in our culture, is we're not saying something about it. And we're letting guys slide because they're all just defending themselves together and being like, guys, like, it's all good, man. And like, don't you tell your girl it's all good? Yeah, it's all good, bro. Don't worry about it. This is not okay. That is a flawed male culture. And if I got to say it, then I'm going to say it, because someone's got to. And I think that we as men need to own this weakness about ourselves that is essentially ancient. Okay, this is the age-old weakness of men that is just in our modern time become so glorified and so easily accessed that we especially need to be stronger. Okay, if anything, we need to get stronger because of how tempting the world has become, because of how easy it has become to access. And for women, the support comes from strengthening and honoring this side of men, the side that is vulnerable and the side that can face their demons. This is something that I've tried to talk about for years, and that is the strongest man, the most masculine man, in my opinion, is the one who has complete discipline over himself. And I am not that. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm that. I am working on it. That's for dang sure, because I know that that is the most impressive man. Okay, I've met rich men. I've met muscular men. I've met like violent men that are like aggressive and, you know, powerful, and military men. And they're all, in my opinion, if they have not done the inner work, it's nothing. Okay, it's all just fugazi. It's just appearances. That's not real power, because if you can't control your inner spiritual destiny, okay, let's get like real epic for a second. If you cannot control your spiritual destiny, then you are a slave. It's like really that simple. And I have to kind of remind myself about this, because I got to kind of, for me, I got to kind of light a fire under my butt. Okay, like, got to take this seriously. I got to stop just kind of being like, yeah, dude. Like I said, I was one of those guys that was just like, yeah, whatever, it's all good. Or I'll work on this tomorrow. Okay. So it's important to acknowledge what is going on spiritually. And that is that our destiny is not in our control, because this can lead us down a path of self-destruction, because it will cause us to make choices that we said before are not morally in tune with what we really want. The rationalization spiritually is that looking at porn is not going to affect your happiness. In fact, it's only going to increase it. That's the con. The con is that pleasure and sexuality and pornography are going to boost your ego. They're going to make you feel sexier. They're going to make you feel stronger. They're going to make you get to be with all these women, which is an illusion because it's not real. It's going to basically make you more of a man or something, right? There has to be this con. There's a root con involved here that's making men think this makes us stronger or happier. Okay, it makes us happier. And that is the root of the con. It does not make you happier. You have to look honestly at how it makes us suffer. First of all, we talked about all the biological things that happen to us. It weakens us as men biologically. Our willpower becomes less. Our brain chemicals become down-regulated, and we become weaker intellectually. It intellectually saps our strength. Ejaculating too much weakens us, our spiritual body energy, our kundalini energy. It depletes our immune system. It causes all of these biological issues, even from, and again, an unnatural, unbalanced amount. So it weakens us in that way. And it also, though, again, it takes away our freedom. That's what it's all about. We got to be free, right? And so it's important to acknowledge that. It's important to acknowledge what's really happening. We are not being happier. We are not getting anything good out of it. It's just making us suffer. It makes me guilty. It makes me not have a good relationship with my wife. It makes me irritable when I don't get it. It makes me objectify women. It makes me not be able to be present because I'm fantasizing. The list goes on, right? So you need to get honest. Okay, we have to get honest.